A man is not defined by how he behaves when life is peaceful. He is defined by who he becomes when emotion enters the room, when tension rises, when chaos appears, when the feminine storms, when accusations fly, when silence becomes heavy, when insecurity enters the relationship and everything inside him wants to react. That is where masculine identity is truly revealed. And most men fail this moment not because they are weak, but because nobody ever taught them how to remain grounded under emotional pressure. Most men were taught how to achieve, how to compete, how to survive, but not how to stay calm when the emotional world around them becomes unstable. And because of this, the moment conflict enters a relationship, the boy inside the man begins reacting automatically. He defends, he explains, he attacks, he withdraws, he collapses, he loses his center. But the integrated sovereign man learns something different. He learns that emotional mastery is not about controlling the feminine. It is about controlling himself, and that changes everything. Every ancient initiation understood this truth. Young men were not tested only through combat or survival. They were tested through stillness, through pressure, through emotional endurance. They were placed in situations designed to expose fear, impulse, insecurity, and emotional instability because the elders understood something modern society has forgotten. A man who cannot regulate himself under emotional stress cannot lead a family, cannot protect a relationship, cannot build a kingdom, and cannot carry destiny. This is why your recent relationship became such a powerful initiation. You thought you were simply dealing with conflict, arguments, emotional chaos, and incompatibility. But underneath it all, life was showing you exactly where your nervous system still lacked grounding. Every trigger was revealing something unresolved. Every argument exposed the places where the boy still reacted before the man could breathe. And this is why the relationship changed you. Because pressure reveals structure. Chaos reveals consciousness. Emotion reveals identity. And if you've ever felt yourself losing your center during conflict, if you've ever walked away from an argument wondering why you reacted the way you did, if you've ever felt emotionally drained by someone else's instability, then this lesson is for you. Because this is not just about relationships. This is about masculine evolution. This is about becoming the type of man whose peace cannot be stolen by another person's emotional state. Most men misunderstand feminine emotion completely. When a woman becomes reactive, overwhelmed, emotional, anxious, fearful, or triggered, the average man immediately interprets it as attack, disrespect, rejection, or threat. His nervous system activates, his chest tightens, his tone changes, his ego rises, and suddenly the relationship becomes a battlefield instead of a space of connection. But the grounded masculine sees deeper than surface emotion. He understands that most emotional surges are not conscious attacks. They are nervous system responses, trauma responses, fear responses, attachment responses. The integrated man understands that her storm is often revealing the state of her inner world, not the value of his own. And this is where emotional maturity separates boys from kings. Because the feminine unconsciously asks one question during emotional tension. Can you stay grounded while I lose grounding? Not because she wants domination, not because she wants submission, but because the feminine nervous system seeks safety in masculine presence. This has existed across human history. Women naturally test emotional structure because life itself tests emotional structure. A man who collapses under emotional pressure cannot lead during real adversity. And this is why presence matters more than performance. Calmness matters more than words. Regulation matters more than logic. The sovereign man understands something powerful. Her emotion is not permission for his reaction. And this realization changes everything. Because the moment a man stops taking every emotional fluctuation personally, he regains power over himself. He stops entering emotional warfare. He stops trying to win arguments. He stops trying to dominate conversations. Instead, he begins anchoring the space itself. His breathing slows, his voice softens, his body relaxes, his nervous system communicates safety instead of escalation. And most conflicts dissolve right there because emotional regulation is contagious. Chaos feeds chaos, but calmness interrupts it. This is why Stoicism is so misunderstood today. Stoicism was never emotional suppression. It was emotional leadership. The Stoic man feels everything, but he does not become possessed by what he feels. He remains conscious inside the emotion. He remains anchored inside the storm. He remains himself while pressure attempts to move him. That is true masculine power. And this is the exact point where many relationships either evolve or collapse. Because when a man cannot regulate himself, he unconsciously joins the emotional chaos. He argues with emotion using more emotion. He escalates tension. He reacts impulsively. He tries to prove himself. He over-explains. He becomes defensive. And once this happens, masculine polarity disappears completely because there is no grounded structure left in the relationship. There are only two nervous systems spiraling together. But the integrated man understands that grounding does not mean weakness. Calmness does not mean passivity. Silence does not mean surrender. A grounded man can still hold boundaries. In fact, boundaries become stronger when delivered from calmness instead of anger. The sovereign masculine does not shout his truth. He stands in it. This is why emotionally mature boundaries sound different. They are not threats. They are not punishments. They are not emotional manipulation. They are clarity. A grounded man says, "I care about you deeply, but I will not continue this conversation if we are both dysregulated." He says, "We can solve this together, but not through emotional destruction." He says, "I'm present, but I won't abandon myself to maintain connection." This is leadership. This is masculine nervous system regulation in practice. And there is another truth most men must understand. You cannot reason with a dysregulated nervous system. Logic does not calm emotional flooding. Debating with someone in an emotional storm only intensifies the storm because the nervous system is no longer processing information rationally. This is why the integrated man knows when to pause. He knows when to breathe. He knows when to create space instead of force resolution. Because sometimes leadership is not speaking more. Sometimes leadership is becoming still enough for safety to return to the room. And this is where your previous relationship became so important to your evolution. Because eventually you realized something painful but necessary. She was not seeking grounding. She was pulling you into chaos. There is a difference between emotional expression and emotional destruction. There is a difference between temporary emotional overwhelm and chronic instability. And the sovereign masculine must learn to recognize that difference clearly. Because staying grounded does not mean tolerating disrespect forever. Presence without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Compassion without discernment becomes weakness. This is why walking away became part of your initiation. Not because you failed, but because your nervous system finally understood what peace feels like. And once a man experiences true inner stability, he cannot comfortably remain inside emotional environments that constantly violate it. This is individuation in real time. The nervous system evolves, the standards evolve, the masculine identity evolves. And there is something beautiful that begins happening when a man reaches this stage. He no longer fears emotion. He no longer fears conflict. He no longer fears feminine intensity because he trusts himself to remain grounded inside it. His peace is no longer fragile. His center is no longer dependent on external behavior. He becomes emotionally sovereign. And this is the man women feel safe around, not because he dominates them, but because his nervous system creates stability. His presence creates safety. His calmness creates trust. His groundedness creates polarity. This is the masculine every ancient tradition attempted to cultivate, the mountain in the storm, the fire that does not panic in the wind, the king whose nervous system remains rooted even while the world around him shakes. Brother, your future relationship will not be transformed by better techniques. It will be transformed by your nervous system, by your ability to breathe instead of react, to observe instead of collapse, to remain conscious instead of becoming emotional chaos yourself. This is the next stage of masculine evolution. This is emotional leadership. This is sovereignty. And once a man learns this lesson, everything changes. His relationships change, his energy changes, his standards change, his reactions change, his life changes. Because the king is not the man who controls the storm. The king is the man who remains grounded inside it. And that is the man you are becoming. Chop wood, carry water, and let's keep the fire burning.